You never know how much time you have. For me, that stopped being an idea and became reality on August 22nd, 2021. The doctors put me on a ventilator and told my wife to call hospice so she could prepare for the day they planned to pull the plug. 6 weeks later, I woke up to an entirely different reality. I could not walk, I could not talk, I could not even lift my own arm. And I woke up realizing something else. I had not made the right preparations for my family. The plans I thought were pretty good fell through when it mattered most. That is why Fiduciary Alchemy welcomes voices that would have warned me about the holes in my plans. My hope is that you live a long and prosperous life, but I also hope you make better plans than I did. So tune in, take notes, and stay with us through the end when Bluesman Grindle and the Compliance Choir bring a word of caution. Today I want to welcome Ellen Dickerson. She is an attorney with Hardie Alcozer. She is also a board-certified estate planning and probate attorney who helps families navigate wills, trusts, estate planning, and tax issues that come with protecting wealth across generations. One of the things I find fascinating with Ellen, I don't think I know another attorney that has a cow, but she has not just a single cow, she has hundreds of cows. And so we're going to talk about that for a couple minutes because that's kind of interesting. And then we'll start talking about making plans. Ellen, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, so now what shocked me was when we first talked, you were your profile says Austin, you're with an Austin law firm.
Hmm.
Very metropolitan, very bougie city. It's kind of lost its weirdness. It's become, kind of a the young hipster town. No
Yep.
more Leslie Cochran walking the streets. For those that don't know, he was a homeless trans transvestite that ran for mayor. That was the old Austin. That's not the
Yep.
current Austin.
Yep.
And
That's accurate. Yes.
yeah. and and But when you said you had cows, I'm like, okay, we're getting back into Austin weird. We have an Austin attorney that has a lot of cows. This is the type
Yes.
of conversation I want to have.
Yes, yes. So, I live full time with my husband and my husband's family, and he is sixth generation for working this ranch, outside of Austin. And so, yeah, they run a lot of cows, and we've had a really fun time just getting as an office to experience the life that I live outside. I joke all the time that I am my husband's most inept ranch hand, but I'm all he's got in some instances, and so it's been fun to be out there and to learn and to experience the cows. It's a great breakup to my day.
Yeah. Now there's a lot of different type of cow ranches, different purposes. Wisconsin, I would just assume it's dairy, but you're not dairy. What do y'all do?
We're not dairy. We are a cow-calf operation, which just essentially means that we breed cows with the hopes of producing lots of calves every year. And then we sell those calves at auction so that they can go on to either be part of feedlots, to go build other people's herds, things of that nature. And so we predominantly have female heifers, cows that will produce the babies. And we're right in the middle of calving season right now. So about every other day, we've got a new one dropping at all these different places. And they are about as cute as you can imagine. Each one is unique and looks different and is a great little blend of their dad and their mom, which is super fun. And then at some point, like I said, we'll wean them from moms. They'll go on and live their lives, and we'll keep our herd and keep producing.
The little bit I've
What
seen
we
about
do.
the birthing process, that's a big deal involving arm length gloves and all sorts of stuff.
Hopefully, you never have to get there, is how I will preface it. That's only when you need to intervene because something has gone wrong. But for the most part, just I think like any other mom, their bodies know what they're doing and they know what they're doing. And so you just let them have it. They will separate themselves from the herd. They will have their calf. Typically, the cow will bed down in a certain area with that calf until the calf is able to get up and walking and move around, and they will protect it from predators for that kind of short period of time. until they can return back to the herd. And I think most people, if you haven't been around cows or around ranching in any shape, form, or fashion, are also interested to always learn that they have daycares, which are the cutest thing you can imagine, which is essentially that at a certain point, there'll be one or two moms left, and they'll have five or six of the babies gathered around them, and they'll watch while, other moms are off eating or whatever they're doing during the day. But that's pretty fun. You can always drive up and see, and you'll be like, oh, we're having daycare over here. Here's seven or eight of them. So
I didn't know
it's
that.
pretty
That's
cute.
pretty cool.
Fun. Yeah. Yeah. They're
Do
herd
you,
animals. They stay together. So
do you keep donkeys in the fields?
no, although my mother-in-law is angling for one. So maybe report back in another year and I'll tell you that we do have one.
Now, my understanding is that the donkeys play an important role, especially if you have coyotes.
Yes, they try to ward off predators. There's other animals too. Some will use either donkeys, they'll use llamas. Llamas are known to be pretty territorial as well, or alpacas. Or emus are a big one as well. You can have an emu out there to kind of protect the herd. And the goal is, yes, that they will ward off any predators like a coyote or something else that may be coming and trying to attack the cows. We're pretty lucky. We don't have too many of that. These out where we are, we don't have a lot of coyotes that are kind of running around. We're more concerned with things like snakes or other kind of predators that are a little bit smaller.
Yeah. I used to live in Bee Cave, just southwest of Austin,
Mhm.
and we had snakes and coyotes. And
Yep.
yeah, and if we were sleeping with the windows open, we'd hear the coyotes. A lot of times it sounded like they were right outside the window.
Hmm.
But one of the most horrible sounds I've ever heard is when the coyotes do a kill. I mean, it just sounds like something out of the depths of hell.
It does. It's pretty bad. And I think probably right up there with a snake, actually getting a hold of an animal as well. Because I've had the experience of hearing snakes like try to, we had like a little family of rabbits at one point that a snake got after, and it sounds horrible. It's awful to listen to. And there's usually nothing that you can do at that point. Nature's got to take its course. But hopefully that stays away from our herd so that we don't
Yeah.
have to worry about that. Our cows are pretty big and they can be pretty mean in and of themselves. I mean, if you get close enough to them, they'll rear back and they'll kick and they'll make sure you know not to come closer again. And we also have each of our herds has a bull with it. So ours are spread out across a few different places. Each one has a bull. He's pretty aggressive and knows how to protect his herd as well. So he's kind of
Lucky
your
bull.
second
One
option.
bull
Yeah,
and a whole bunch of cows.
that's exactly right. Yep.
Lucky
It was a
guy.
highlight. Yeah, yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit about law. And
Mhm.
the so basically you help. I mean, I would imagine it's just a horrible. Nobody wants to talk about death. Nobody wants to talk about
Yeah,
planning for the end. And so I imagine that makes your
that's
job extra
exactly
hard.
right. I try to induce it with a little bit of humor, and I try to make as hard as I can something that is very stressful and very concerning for a lot of people to where we can talk about it in really fun terms to make it less pressure. Nobody gets out of here alive is how we kind of start the conversation. And then we kind of take it from there and kind of demystify some of the things that surround it so that we develop a level of trust and comfort that, even if the worst happens, right, and you do pass away, you can feel secure in the knowledge that you have something by which your family can use to administer your estate to make it that much easier. And that usually is a bigger driving force for people than kind of contemplating the unknown that is. Sometimes it happens where a client doesn't do anything until the exact last moment, which is when we are really having to confront that in real terms, but most of the time we're doing it well ahead of anyone having to confront that possibility very soon.
Well, and certainly one of the lessons from my story is you never know how much time you have. I never
That's
expected to die in
exactly
my
right.
50s. Yeah.
That's exactly right. And certainly, planning for the unexpected, that's exactly what we kind of counsel for as well, because exactly like your circumstance, there could be a day where just suddenly something happens to you. And that could be an accident, that could be, a medical diagnosis that is finally kind of starting to take its toll, or some of those kind of slower ones like dementia or Alzheimer's that kind of creep in all of a sudden. And if you wait too long, it can be very difficult to do planning. I tell people all the time that you need to come in and do your estate planning is not when you need it, because at that point it may be too late, meaning you've received that diagnosis and you're like, oh shoot, I haven't looked at my will or even thought about who could care for my finances and my medical needs if I can't do it myself. And if you've already gone too far into that diagnosis or you've already gone too far down that way, we just can't do anything about that. You have to explore other legal remedies in order to get help versus doing this before you get to that point. And then we have everything we need to immediately jump in and help someone.
Yeah. Well, and I remember, so my dad died of brain cancer. And in some ways, it was a real blessing. There was very little pain, but he had a little bit of a runway. But one of the things we started noticing very quickly was, obviously his brain was rotting, and so there were some deficits, and he became not real good at making decisions.
Yes, yes. And certainly when we start seeing someone moving into incapacity, because it's like you say, sometimes it's sudden, sometimes it's immediate and sudden, and that's the accident that nobody plans for. Sometimes it's a gradual slip. And oftentimes when you see that, that is where we also see the most gray area for financial manipulation, for financial drains on the estate, where money is going places and we don't really know where it is. That's when people can be talked into, sending money to Nigerian princes, right? Things like that. And so it's very, very important to have, someone who can step in, who can kind of get us back on the appropriate course before those big financial drains hit to an estate, because that can be a big depletion. And that, of course, means that there's less money there to take care of this person in addition to, what will eventually be left to other family members.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things I saw with my folks was my mom had decided she didn't want to live in the house after my dad passed. And for some weird reason, they decided to keep it a secret that they were in the process of buying another house for her before he died. And so his brain is rotting, so not in a real good position to make decisions.
Yeah.
And she's emotionally not in a great place. And some big mistakes were made in that. And that was still alive. I just like, it always puzzled me. I was like, we're here to support you. Why didn't you? I was taking a nap and I was waking up from my nap and I overheard a conversation. I realized what was
Yep.
going on. It's like, why didn't you pull us in? I'm not going to, it's your money. You can do whatever you want with it.
Mhm.
But we're probably, your kids are probably in a better position to help you think
If they
through some of these
know.
decisions.
Yeah, if they know and they can help. So I agree. And hear me also say everybody's family dynamics is different. So for all that I can say, this is what I would do. I'm coming from a very blessed place of my family I know would be very drama free and would respect my wishes. That's not the case for everyone. But to the extent it makes sense, telling your children or telling the people that you're putting in charge of making decisions for you is very, very helpful. One, nobody's concerned or confused about who's in charge. They know because you've said, whether you've disclosed the documents or not, hey, if something happens to me, child A is going to be the one that will make these decisions. Child A, please consult with the family, confer with everyone, use them to the extent you can, but you're going to be the person who's kind of running point here. And that helps demystify a little bit because again, if somebody's stepping in to have to care for this, it's typically very emotional and a very stressful time for you and for them. And so, to the extent you can prepare them with, hey, here's where everything is by way of the documents that you're going to need. Hey, family, here's who's in charge. And by the way, we've had conversations about what happens if I'm put on, life support machines, but I'm also in a vegetative state. Have we talked about, who the beneficiaries of my estate are so that nobody is surprised by who is actually going to benefit? So, to the extent you can prepare them with that information, that's what we want. And I spend a lot of time with clients too, talking about ways to organize yourself just in case something happens. And it's a very low lift thing that, I myself do this for a living and I only update mine once a year, but it's just something that you can do to kind of organize yourself and your family for here's where my assets are. Hey, here's where my bills get paid, right? Who's my mortgage? Who's my electric? Who's my water, right? How about health insurance information, right? Things like that. All things that kind of get compiled into one place. You update just once a year, but your family knows, hey, it's there as a go by should something happen to me. And it also helps inform them who's your attorney, who's your CPA, who's your financial advisor, right? Who are the people in your life that help keep things going such that if something happens to you, that can still happen, right? Because we don't want you to have any kind of lapse in your care or lapse in the things that are able to take care of you just because you've become incapacitated.
Well, and that kind of raises another question. I ran into a few of the issues that you were talking about when I was in my coma. But
Mhm.
one, where do you put it? Because
Yeah.
that's where things get really dicey fast, as I understand. Where do
hmm
you put all this information?
So, a couple of places. Once you have documents in place, meaning a will, financial and medical powers of attorney being kind of the big three, there's others that can come along with that. My recommendation is always going to be a fireproof, waterproof location. A lot of times people will say safe deposit boxes. Safe deposit boxes work great if the people that you are appointing can actually get into your box. So you have to make sure that they have access because if not, I can't get into the box. We can't help. But a document safe, you can buy small document safes from Amazon for about 20 bucks, 25 bucks these days, which is a great place to store these documents. You can slip those under your bed or maybe in a drawer. And again, just make sure that somebody in your family knows where it is and how to get it into it. And then my fail safe, and this probably says a lot. Everybody's going to be like, okay, you did grow up on a ranch and you do have cows. I was always taught that your freezer was a great fireproof, waterproof location as well. So you can just wrap your documents in a Ziploc bag in your freezer. If something were to happen, they're at least there. But again, just tell your family and make sure that they know not to start, dumping things out of your freezer if something were to happen to you. But that's kind of a general idea for where you want your originals to be kept. Copies of the documents can be disseminated to the family members that you believe need copies of the documents. And oftentimes these days, most people are willing to accept a copy. Most banks, for example, will use a copy of the document. And so, especially if you've given a copy to the people that you're entrusting with making some of these decisions for you, they should be able to utilize it. But following that up with, and don't forget the originals are here.
Now, I heard once that safe deposit boxes are like quarantined. If you die, that immediately those get locked and nobody has access to it. Is that true?
That's correct. That's correct. If nobody else is a signer to the box. So if it's just, for example, if my husband and I have a safe deposit box and both of us are the signatories on it, if I pass away, he can still access the box because it's half his box, right? So he has a key, he can get in. But when both of us pass away, my brother, for example, is the person who administers my estate and who steps in to, control my finances and medical decisions if I become incapacitated. He's the one who's going to need the originals if my husband's not there to step in. And so at that point, he would be locked out of the box. He couldn't get to the documents. Thankfully, Texas does give us some routes that we can ask a bank to open a safe deposit box that will include, for example, if we believe that these documents are located in the box, but they will not allow you to take any other contents out of the box. So if you have other things in there, a lot of people keep other important documents, jewelry, money, right? Anything like that. Those can't be removed. They have to stay in place until you die and an executor is appointed for your estate, and then the executor is given access to the box. But from experience, if you don't have a key, they make you drill the box, and it can be upwards of $400 to drill a safe deposit box, depending on the bank and how big the box is. And so it can get kind of costly to have to locate these documents if you put them there. The easy workaround is just make sure, like for example, in my instance, my safe deposit box should have myself, my husband, and my brother. Because at that point, if something happened to all of us and he had to step in, he's on the box and he can get access.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that happened to me, I'd given my stepson access to my password manager.
hmm
And so he had access to all my business passwords, all my personal passwords. The only problem was he forgot he had access. And so when I was in my coma, nobody knew how to access anything.
Yeah.
And so that, I guess that's one of the things I worry about. So we have a safe and we have important documents
Mhm.
in the safe. It's fireproof. And um, but I often worry, and we've given certain people the combination of that safe, but I just always worry, when that day comes, will they remember they have the combo?
Well, exactly. And it's a very emotional time. So the answer may be that they don't remember. But again, I hope you can prepare them with some alternate routes to get into the safes. Because again, like I've said, a safe deposit box, you can drill a safe, but it's just as expensive as it is to drill a safe deposit box. So alternate options would be when you disseminate copies, make sure that you have written somewhere in the copies what the combinations would be to be able to get into where those original documents are located, as well as even maybe not keeping your originals with you, but maybe keeping your originals with the person who you have appointed to serve if something were to happen to you. So I do have a number of clients who have said, well, I'm not going to need my will. I'm going to be gone, but so and so is my executor. I'm just going to go ahead and give it to so and so, and they know what to do with it whenever something happens to me. I will say too, technology is catching up to this problem, which is that it's starting to provide some alternative routes for us to get into digital assets. I mean, I don't know about you, my life runs off of my phone these days. It's how I pay my bills, it's how I get access to my bank accounts, right? So it becomes incredibly important to be able to get into your phones. So these days, now you have powers of attorney that will include access to digital assets, which makes it a little bit easier. So you don't have to necessarily just be locked out of something. It takes contacting like Apple, for example, to say, hey, I can have access. Can you give me the codes? But they've actually gotten very smart about that too. So, for example, and I can only speak to iPhone users, I don't know that this applies to Android users, but iPhones now allow you to put a legacy contact on your phone, which is an individual who can walk into an Apple store with your phone and say, hey, I need into this device. Had they done that with no legacy contact, Apple would have turned them away and said, we can't give you access for privacy purposes, etc. But now, if you're the legacy contact, they'll give you the code to the phone right there. You can get in, you can get anything off of it that you may need to, and it's getting a little bit easier. So, technology, I think, is going to catch up with us in this world to help a little bit. But it's still, I think, important for you to make sure that you've written down, hey, my safe code is this, my iPhone password is that in one safe location because those are going to be necessary to administer your estate. And, a lot of people will say, okay, well, that's great for finding my assets, finding my bank accounts, paying my bills, but it's also important for things like your social media. So if you have Facebook or Instagram, I have thankfully never had an estate with an identity theft problem and I never want one. But one of the reasons why is because I'm very diligent in telling my clients, you need to go wind down somebody's social media, somebody's Facebook page, so that it's not out there for people to misuse.
Yeah. It's interesting. Michael Dell, of course, a big name in Austin. When he was in high school, he was making more money than his teachers selling
Hmm.
newspaper subscriptions. And one of the things he figured out was the people most likely to buy newspapers subscriptions are people who just got married or people who just lost a loved one.
Hmm.
Well, if he could have done that in the early 80s, you can certainly do that now. And you don't even
Hmm.
have to, you don't have, he actually, he had employees when he was in high school. His employees would go to the courthouses and start pulling these docs. Um,
Yep.
but you don't need to do that. I mean, everything's so accessible online. And so that would seem to be a really easy way to scam. You just look for, hey,
Yeah.
who died this week? And let me start working that.
Yeah. And, oftentimes people have very easy to guess passwords, which is another, soapbox to get on with respect to your privacy. But yes. And how many people have received the Facebook messages from the friend who's like, hey, I need money and I need it now. And you're like, oh, I haven't talked to this person in forever. Well, it's because they passed away. They don't exist anymore. And now they're, asking you for money, especially in the elderly community. That is ripe for people to be like, oh, okay, here, yeah, here's my money. Start taking it. Oh gosh, I just want to help you. And
Yeah.
and it's very prone to people misusing it. So it's a good thing to lock down your Facebook and your social media and stuff like that so that your family doesn't have to deal with that. Because ultimately, if money starts disappearing or if charges get made to a credit card, the credit card company doesn't necessarily care that, grandma is incapacitated when she was purchasing all of those, Apple gift cards to start sending to somebody. They just care that, they get paid. And so that can be a really unfortunate thing and a very big place for people to be really prone to predators. And like you say, especially when somebody passes away, most of the time that's public record, right? If there are people who know how to look for it, there are people who know how to start preying on individuals who have social media like that.
I used to had a client that sold cyber liability insurance, and back when we had him as a client, I would periodically look up the top 10 passwords that people use. It's ridiculous. Password
Oh,
one, two,
password,
three,
yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, it's just there's a standard
Hmm.
list. And then it's gotten worse because people keep reusing passwords. So
Yes.
if somebody can hack into somebody's account, let's say they hack into I'll say J.C. Penney. I don't think they exist anymore, so they can't sue us. But they hack into or Sears. They hack into your Sears account. They get your password
Hmm.
that they use on Sears, and they're like, "Oh, I bet you this person uses the same password at their bank
Yep.
or wherever." Um, so I mean, I'm a big advocate of having a password manager. Yeah, I
Yes.
think it's
It certainly
nuts.
makes it easy to compile the passwords because I don't know about y'all, but I have like 16 different reiterations of different passwords to keep up with these days. So it definitely does help. In order to have that. And also, if you have them saved somewhere, it does make it that much easier for either your financial power of attorney or maybe a future executor of your estate to come in and start winding those things down. Because if not, the alternative is we may never be able to. And so it's a great thing to have those saved. I think I'm probably one of the few people who would say it's important to know what your username and passwords are and to have them written down somewhere. A password saver makes it very easy. I mean, again, I'm a Mac and iPhone user, so that's how I know most of the stuff. I don't know what the similar thing is for Android users, but Apple products now have passkeys, and passkey keeps all of your passwords and information, and I don't even have to think about it anymore. It's very easy to just fill in all of that information. It would be just as easy for your family to be able to do the same if and when the time comes.
Yeah. So let's talk about um, getting a will in place. Because some people are going to say, "Hey, my life is just so simple. There's nothing complicated." What are some what would you say is the bare minimum that folks should do?
Bare minimum, you should have a will and you should have a set of incapacity documents, meaning financial medical powers of attorney and some kind of ancillary documents that kind of go hand in hand with those. And they really are because they take care of you two different stages. Powers of attorney and those incapacity documents are exactly what they sound for when you are incapacitated, meaning you are still here with us. You just happen to be incapacitated for whatever reason. And then your will takes care of your stuff once something happens to you, meaning you pass away. And they're two different stages and two different needs, right? One is taking care of you while you're alive. Second is making sure that your assets pass to your intended beneficiaries. If you do nothing, it's not that there are no other options for you. It's just that the law provides the options for you. And I tell people, regardless of where you fall in the political sphere, when do you think your government has ever got it 100% right all of the time? So a
Yeah.
lot of people will say, oh, my family's, just like you said, my family scenario is simple. I'm married, we have one child. It's very straightforward. I want everything to go to my husband, and I want, when both of us pass away, everything to go to my child. Not necessarily what the default is under Texas law. If you were to pass away without a will, even in that simple of a scenario, sometimes there are odd quirks that would direct assets differently. And so the easiest way to just make sure your intentions are met is just write it down in a will. And a will can be a very, very straightforward, simple piece, couple pieces of paper that just make that happen. The other thing is that Texas has probate, which is the process after you pass away, where someone is appointed to oversee the administration of your estate and to oversee the assets going to your intended beneficiaries. Texas has a default, which is dependent administration, which means every single thing that happens in your state administration needs to be overseen by a court. But that actually gets very expensive. And we have an alternate option, which is independent administration, which means that your estate can go with limited court oversight. There is still some court oversight. But if you don't say otherwise, your family has no choice but to go into dependent administration sometimes. And so it's important to just make it that much easier. While it seems, and you may have the simplest will, even just, some of those nice, independent administration and pieces like that can make a lot of difference in the administration of your estate, both from the aspect of having it move faster, but also the expense that comes along with it too. So it can really help minimize things for your family if you just take that one small step to get it done.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, Ellen, really appreciate you coming on Fiduciary Alchemy. How can folks reach you?
So you can find my profile online at hardiealcozer.com. You also can email me at ellen@hardiealcozer.com, and you can certainly call the office at any time and make an appointment. I'm always happy. We do risk-free 1-hour consults at our office, which just means it's completely free to sit down and talk with us, figure out what estate planning options are available for you and your family, and then we go from there.
Well, excellent. Well, thanks again. Love the conversation.
Of course.
Thank you for tuning in to Fiduciary Alchemy, the coolest financial podcast you're likely to find. We go looking for voices like the one you just heard because I want you to dodge the mistakes that I made and learn it without the coma, without the drama, without nearly paying the man. I don't know why I lived when so many others died. That part's still a mystery. Now, some folks ask, Craig, what is it you do? Well, I'm telling you now, that's no mystery at all. We solve hard marketing problems in crowded markets so good folks like our guests can rise above the noise, become visible, memorable, irresistible, and grow like never before. If organic growth is your problem, reach out, call me. Let's make a plan and bring your next steps into the light. But don't leave yet. Stick around a minute more and listen to Bluesman Grendel and the Compliance Choir deliver a word of caution. Just for you.
This podcast is for information, education, that is all. It is not financial, tax, or legal advice to guide your call. Nothing here's an offer, nothing here's a buy or sell. No recommendation, no solicitation. I'm saying it plain and well. Plain and well. Plain and well. Past performance ain't no promise of what tomorrow brings. Markets turning, people lose on all kinds of hopeful things. Every investment carries risk. Principle can fade away. What works for one won't fit us all. That truth is here to stay. Fade away. Fade away. Here to stay. Yeah, that's the compliance blues. Lord, the compliance blues. Get your own financial, tax, and legal help before you make your move. That's the compliance blues. Your situation's yours alone. Your needs are not not the same. Different facts and different goals can change the whole damn game. So talk to somebody qualified before you choose your role, because the weight of every money move is your own load to hold. Your own road. Your own load. Your own load. Well, that's the compliance blues. Lord, the compliance blues. Get your own financial, tax, and legal help before you make your move. That's the compliance blues. Informational only, educational too. Get qualified financial, tax, and legal advice that is right for you.